Thank you guys for joining us. Happy to be here. End of July. Oh my gosh, I can't believe August is right around the corner, as in like a couple days. But Elizabeth and I appreciate you guys being here with us. For those of you who are new and may have not been around with us the past couple of years through the traditional annual assessment process, we do a mid-year checkup every single year. And it's usually sometime in July. Sometimes it's a little bit earlier in the month. Sometimes it's a little bit later in the month. I did it later in the month this time because we had all that, our design boot camp training going on. Otherwise, I would have tried to do it a little bit earlier. But the idea behind it is that this is our opportunity to check in. We're 6 months into the year. We should be moving along. We're going to talk about what to expect with the upcoming assessment process in the next year, answer your questions, kind of talk you through it, and again, just provide you an opportunity to almost like what I always kind of say is like take your temperature, see where you're at as a program and see what you need to do, what you may have been slacking on a little bit, what you need to pick up the pace on, and we'll go from there. And I'll probably primarily be talking, but I do have Elizabeth here because she is the primary contact and girl that runs us through this whole assessment process. She really keeps us on our on track and on our toes. She is usually the primary point of contact for you guys as well. And she, especially if you're a new manager, she is the person you will work with the most to make sure that you've got everything sorted and in place and underway. So I think it's important for her to be here with us. Also, she's going to jump in if she has any tips or tricks or things that kind of pop to her mind when I'm talking through some of these things. Just some reminders like, hey, make sure you do this, or if you have a question about this, do this kind of thing. So I thought it'd be good to have both of us here today. So just to give you a quick overview of the things that we're going to touch on, I'm going to go through and just generally talk about the annual assessment process. We're going to talk about what to expect. I'm going to show you where to find resources. I'm going to talk about how to evaluate whether your program is prepared or not, and then we'll talk about some recommended next steps for you as a manager. Okay. So first, I want to start by saying that last year was an anomaly, right, with the COVID and the assessment process. That is not how we typically do it. So for those of you who may not have been with us when we did our kind of last, what I call them, like run of 3-year annual assessments, we're starting from scratch, and this is how it works. We take all of our communities. We have 12 regions here at DCA, and we divide up these regions, and we meet with a certain set of regions each year. And basically the way it works out is that all the communities we work with will do an in-person, I'm going to say right now, an in-person presentation with us once every 3 years. It is a deep dive into getting to learn about your community, what's happening, what's going on, what has changed, what has evolved, what challenges you have, what accomplishments you've made, and a real opportunity for us as a team to have a dialogue. The idea is that we want to see you at conferences, we want to see you at trainings, we're here to help you troubleshoot as you go throughout the year. If you need something, we're here for you, obviously, but this is something that is required by the National Main Street Center. And the reality is, with the amount of programs we have, we just can't do this every year. And honestly, from the perspective of Elizabeth and I have both been managers, Lord have mercy, you don't want to do it every year. We don't want to do it every year. It's a lot for both sides. So it's nice to be able to say that you have this kind of like more intense version that you do with us once every 3 years. And then on those other years, those other 2 years, it's what we will often refer to as your off years. But that doesn't mean you're off the hook completely. So again, when you are meeting with us and presenting with us, and I will talk, don't worry guys, I will talk through what all that means. But you're going to be doing that deeper dive. We've got a more complex assessment process that goes with that. But on those off years, that's when you're going to do the checklist. We've got a checklist and affidavit. If you were here with us last year to try and simplify, y'all's challenges in 2020, we said, you know what, we're going to give everybody a break and let everybody do the checklist, right? So we can keep our documentation up to date. We can make sure that everybody's, air quotes, doing what they need to do, but we knew that people would have some challenges with like meeting requirements and things like that. And so we wanted to just kind of give everybody the simplest route to accreditation for this year. So that's what we chose to do. So if you remember that checklist, if you remember that process of uploading those documents to Dropbox, that is what that process will be like again for you if you are not in regions 3 or 4. So if you are in regions 3 or 4, you will be meeting with us and doing this presentation. I will say that because of the world we live in right now, we are providing in-person opportunities to present and virtual. We polled the regions we would be meeting with. Honestly, it was split on what people wanted to do, and some people were very honest and said, I could go either way. I'm not really sure. Depends on the state of the world. And to be quite honest, our team said the exact same thing. So my goal is to provide you with those people who have to present in 2022, the utmost flexibility and keep it safe for everyone. So that means as of right now, we are moving forward with in-person options and virtual options. You will get to decide what is best for you. But I will say, full disclosure, if the world goes crazy again between now and then, and we feel it is not safe for you or not safe for the team, there is the opportunity to move it all virtual. That is not what we want. That is not what we're hoping for. That is not what we are planning for right now, but we are prepared for all contingencies, and that is our backup plan. So regardless of COVID-19 status in the world, everybody who is in region 3 and 4 will be presenting, even if we have to do it all virtually. Again, that's not the ideal situation, but that's, again, the world we live in right now, and just trying to be prepared. For everybody, whether you are presenting or not presenting, everything is due to us by January 15th, 2022. And for new managers, everything is always the previous year. So you're going to turn all your stuff in about what happened to you in 2021 by January 15th, 2022. We do that because the holidays are at the end of the year. We want to give you a little bit of time to get back into the office and get everything sorted if you haven't done it already. But again, whether you are presenting or not presenting, everything is due by January 15th. The caveat there is if you are presenting, you do not have to turn your presentation into us until you actually present. So, I mean, it's one of those things, if you do it ahead of time, it's nice, put it in your Dropbox, save it there, you have a backup. But I'm not, if you're not presenting till February, I'm not going to ask you to have it due by January 15th. You have some leeway, but that presentation obviously will be due by the morning of you actually presenting with us. Again, everything is always, behind. So whether it's our monthly reports, we're always reporting a month behind. If it's our annual assessments, we're always reporting a year behind. So we will, yes, we'll call it the 22 annual assessment or 2022 annual assessment, but it will be on 2021 information. Elizabeth.
And be sure that day of your presentation that presentation is uploaded to Dropbox. We like to do that, and bring a jump drive just in case, cover all of our bases. So that way, if one of those fails, we have multiple ways to pull up your presentation. And number 2, we have that presentation kind of like what we always use Dropbox for, that succession planning, that record of what your program has done in the past. So we want to make sure that there's a copy of your presentation in Dropbox as well. So if you bring it on jump drive, wonderful, but also make sure you upload a copy to your Dropbox too.
And Elizabeth made a good point. Having that in Dropbox is your backup to your backup, right? Full disclosure, we have had people show up and jump drives have not worked, or it's been a challenge pulling up the presentation, and we have logged into Dropbox, pulled up their presentations, and been able to just run with it. And the other backup to those backups is you can always save it as a PDF. And so that way, if something's corrupted or you have a little bit of trouble with something, we can always pull up the document as a PDF and go through it that way. I mean, granted, you wouldn't have any animations that you have maybe plugged into it, but again, the nuts and bolts are still going to be there. So very, very good point, Elizabeth. Thank you. And lastly, do not wait to the last minute to get started. I always tell people, I take off the week between Christmas and New Year's. that is me. That is who I am. I've done it almost every single year since I've been here at the state. And our team, pretty much everybody takes some time off around the holidays, and we try and spread it out so that we do have coverage. But because of that, I don't want you waiting till the week after Christmas to start looking at this stuff. Do it early, get ahead of it, get a plan, figure it out, get a good grasp on it. Let us have plenty of time to work with you on it, and then, feel good and relaxed going into the holiday season, knowing that you don't have to, pull your hair out and go crazy trying to get this stuff done. There's no need for it. And if you do it, you're only doing it to yourself. So if you are wondering if you will be presenting to us in 2022, again, these are the communities for Region 3, Region 4. Full disclosure, there is always the opportunity that you are looking at this list thinking you should be on there and you're not, because Elizabeth pointed out to me this morning that I missed someone, and so I was throwing them on there. But the way it works too, the only people you will see on this list right now is if you are a classic Main Street community. So if you are a classic Main Street community, you will be presenting to us. If you're a GEMS community, there's a separate process for that. Now, granted, don't you guys think that GEMS communities are getting off easy? They actually have a more intense process than you do for designation. But if you're an affiliate, you only have to complete that checklist and affidavit. That's all you have to do every single year. But again, remember, guys who are at those higher designation levels, the requirements for them are less, staffing requirements for them are less, incentives and benefits for them are less, so they may be, have a little bit easier a process every single year, but remember, they're getting a little bit less from the office and the designation as well. So if you see your name here, Regions 3, Region 4, you will be presenting to us. If you feel like you should be on this list and you're not on this list, please reach out to Elizabeth or myself and we can confirm whether you should or shouldn't be on it. Meeting locations. Full disclosure, if you are Valinda from Canton, if you are the ladies from Carrollton, I have not talked to you about this. I've only talked to city managers about this. So I've reached out to all the city managers in Carrollton, Canton, and Jonesboro, and have asked if we can come to your communities and work with you to host our in-person presentations there. So we will be coordinating with the managers most likely to help those dates and the logistics and stuff like that. But just full disclosure, I have reached out and talked to your city managers already. They have signed off on it. So these are the 3 communities we're planning to be in. If you are in Region 3 and 4, and remember the last go around that we did this, we had everybody come to the Atlanta office. Which is not really fun for us and definitely not fun for you. So the idea is I tried to spread the love around a little bit, and you can choose any of those locations you want to. Meaning if you're in Douglasville, I know coming to Carrollton is a lot closer than coming to Canton or Jonesboro. You're more than welcome to do that. So you don't have to necessarily stay in your region. If you're going to do it in person, you're just going to need to do it at one of these locations. And then again, if you would like to do the virtual option, we will have some weeks that are saved just for virtual, and then some weeks that are saved for our in-person presentations. And you will have the opportunity to look at that registration list, pick the time, date, location, whether that's in person or virtually, that works best for you, and schedule that. I am still working and will be working with the managers and the city managers to confirm addresses and physical locations and finalize the dates. So I am not talking about those right now. Internally, we have those kind of nailed down, but I want to make sure we confirm them with each of the communities before I put it out there. But it's fine. You don't need it today because registration isn't going to open till October 1st. So in your mind, you can just kind of be thinking which one would I want to go to and which version would I want to do, person or virtual. Elizabeth, anything I'm missing?
And just so y'all know, like, we don't have the specific dates outlined for the specific communities, but the rough date range will probably be, sorry, sort of the last week of January through possibly the first week of March, depending on how it lays out. So that's sort of the date range we're looking at. We're like Jessica said, we're still fiddling with exactly when we're going to be where, but that's kind of the chunk of time you can expect that you'll be presenting at some point in that range.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We try not to, so, everything will be due January 15th. We try not to do anything that next week. And that primarily is so that we can get your community impact annual summary reports done and completed. So that way it can be a component of the not the presentation, but our component to the presentation, where we talk through those numbers and we talk about your impact as a community. So we typically don't start that next week, and we try our best, depending on how many communities we are meeting with, to be done by March 15th. And again, that's because we have to turn in our information to national. They always want some lead time compared to when they have to turn around and give out the certificates and stuff like that for the designations and look at our lists and approve everything. So again, those are usually kind of like the time frames that we're working in and working with. Oh, yep, there you go. Pick the time of day that works best for you. I wanted to show you a couple resources, and again, I will probably show this a little bit later in the presentation as well, just to reinforce it. But if you are, I'm gonna show you, if you are presenting or not presenting, where you can find some stuff. So you're gonna go to our website, you're gonna go to this resource section, you're gonna click on this area that says resource library. It is going to pull up this page. You're going to sort by annual assessment, and then you are going to go to the annual assessment page, where you will find things like the schedule and the presentation template and the actual annual assessment document that you will need for deep dives and all that kind of stuff. That is where all this information will live. And once this is done today, I will actually put a copy of this on the website as well as on our YouTube page. So anything that you are going to need, if you can navigate to this, you will be able to find it. And again, I've broken it up. So you've got, remember, you need to know if you're presenting or not presenting, because there is a difference. So if you're presenting, that first section is going to be for you: annual assessment presentation schedule, template sign up. And the second one, again, for oh, it says non-reporting. It should be non-presenting communities. I'll change that. But for those of you who aren't presenting. So for non-presenters, again, you're still required to submit documentation. You do not have to complete the extensive annual assessment document, which I will show you in a little bit. You must have submitted all your monthly reports on time, and we need to have them all by, when I find out that communities are behind because Elizabeth's nice to you, I get frustrated. And we will talk a little bit later about probation, but just so you know, if you are a habitual late reporter, you could be moved down or put on probation. I'm just going to say it, because there's no reason why, if you've been doing this long enough, you don't have a system worked out to be able to turn in your monthly reports. Guys, this is the basics of the basics, we were flexible last year, because of COVID. We have all had to figure out how to adapt to this new reality, right? Because I'm not going to say it's normal. It's not normal, but the new reality, right? So my expectation is that everybody is getting back into that, figuring out their new routine, whatever that looks like. But you need to stay up to date with this, because if you don't, mom's going to get mad and you could go on probation or you could get moved down a designation. Fair warning. So you're going to complete and sign that affidavit and checklist. Again, the checklist is designed to be a no-brainer. We tell you what you need to put in there and we tell you where it needs to go, like literally what folder it needs to go in. There's no reason you should have a challenge with this, but if you do, please feel free to reach out. All these documents go in Dropbox. You do not have to like share with us anything once it's done. You just got to put it in there and you got to put it in the right place. And once that's done, we can access it, we can see it. Your folders must be in order. I've got a visual for that. We also have resources for that we will show you. Again, everything due by January 15th. I have here based on 2020 information. It's not, it's based on 2021. I'm sorry, guys. Can you tell I like update old presentations to make sure we're covering the same stuff? But yes, always the year behind. Elizabeth, am I missing anything?
For those of you that are old hat, you probably know the trick of, you can just rename your copy and paste your last year's folder, rename it to the current year. If you're doing the full presentation, there will be a little bit of extra information that needs to go in there because you have that larger assessment document. Which, if you need help with that, please reach out to me, reach out to anybody on the team. I am the Dropbox person, we all know this, and so I'm happy to help in any way, shape, or form. But the other thing, we do have a model Dropbox folder that I am happy, and it has, in addition to the checklist where it tells you exactly where it should go in Dropbox, the model Dropbox folder mimics that checklist. So within each section checklist, there are folders that lead you to what needs to be in that particular folder. And so if that is something you're interested in, I know I do that for new managers and new programs, but if that's something that, it would just be nice for you guys to have so you don't have to like fiddle with renaming stuff, and maybe organization isn't your strong suit and you want a little cheat, I'm happy to put that in your Dropbox for you. You just need to reach out to me and I will drag and drop and we'll be good to go.
Yep, absolutely. Previously, I would have been like, Elizabeth, don't do this for people. But now I'm like, you know what? If it makes your life a little bit easier, I'm more than happy to have us do that for you guys. But again, you got to do your part and reach out to us and let us know that that's what you need. It's already done on our end. We can just drag and drop, but we just need you to tell us that that's what you want or what you need. Because some people are very like, they don't want us in there messing around, touching stuff because you've got it organized, you've got your system. I get it. I'm like, I wouldn't want you coming into my stuff and playing around and screwing stuff up or moving things around. So we only want to do that if you want us to do it. But if you need that help, please, again, reach out. That is something we're more than happy to help you with. Okay, for those who are presenting, again, you get to pick the time block, location, date, virtual, in person that works for you. Each block is 2 hours in length. And so the idea is that we are going to provide you with a PowerPoint template. Remember when I referenced earlier the handout section, there is actually a copy of that template in the handouts. So it is on the website right now under those resources, but you don't even have to go dig for it because I've already put it in handouts today. And so I will tell you that we encourage you to be creative. We encourage you to brand it. We encourage you to make it your own. What I ask though is that if there is a question on there, I want you to address it. If there's a topic, that's what I want you to make sure you hit on, because we want to be able to I want you to be able to be creative, but I want to also make sure that we're comparing apples to apples and we're able to, the things that we're asking to look at are the important key components that we need to make sure are addressed during our meeting. So again, you can add pictures. We always encourage pictures because let me tell you guys, after looking at 30 of these, like pictures is really the saving grace and is what sticks out with us. We love hearing like what creative things you're doing, what's different, what makes you unique, like have fun with it. But make sure you're hitting the basics. You can add more slides if you want. If you want to do a couple slides to cover one topic, that's okay. All I'm asking is that you make sure you cover the topics that are outlined within the presentation. Again, we want you to kind of keep your presentation to about an hour in length. And I know you're already thinking, oh my God, an hour-long presentation. Trust me, guys, when you get in there and you start doing it, keeping it to an hour is more of a challenge than going for an hour. Because we like to lead an informal discussion. We will stop you. We will ask questions. We will be like, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard or ever seen. Tell me more about this. You know, so honestly, keeping it to an hour becomes more of a challenge than anything. And then what we like to do for the rest of that time is we're going to pull up Dropbox. Yes, this is why it's so important that it's organized and looks right. We're literally going to pull it up in front of your boss or your board members or whoever else is there with you. And we're going to look at it and we're going to say, yeah, this is great, or no, this is not great. This is a problem. We're going to make sure everything's in there. We're going to talk about that annual assessment comprehensive document, which I will show you in a little bit. And we're also going to talk about your community impact numbers. Again, those are those summarized monthly reports. That's us just taking that information, putting it all in one spot and giving it to you so you can show up. But we will talk about that. So that's kind of what we do with that second hour. And then the idea is you actually walk away from the presentation that day and you will know your designation. You will know, yes, I'm a classic community. No, I'm in trouble and I'm on probation. Yes, this is an area we're having challenges with, and this is going to be our follow-up requirements with Georgia Main Street, or, you know, anything, the good and the bad. We talk about it all. So you will know exactly where you stand when you leave. I will also tell people, nothing we do is designed to be a gotcha situation. We want you to succeed. We want you to be successful. This is why we spell stuff out. This is why we create resources. Our hope is that you go into the presentation, you feel prepared, you feel ready, you are in front of friendly faces. We are all team whatever community you are. You know, we're team Stone Mountain, we're team Swanee, we're team Carrollton, we're team Villa Rica. We are here for you. We are here to support you. You know, so know that you're coming in there and you have advocates for you sitting across, but we're also your, what Elizabeth likes to call your accountability buddies. Did I say that right?
The accountability buddies, yes.
Accountability buddies, meaning that we have people above us that we are accountable to, right? National Main Street Center. They look to us to make sure that we are holding you to those standards, that we're not watering down the brand, that everybody who is at those designation levels is doing what they need to do and is, you know, holding up that Main Street name proudly. So again, we take this very serious. We hope you do too. But again, you know, my goal is never for you to like feel nauseous and sick because you have to come and present to us. That's not the idea. You know, I hope that if anything, you come down, sit in front of us, and think, okay, they are on my team. They're here to help, you know, get me through this. You know, we can do this together. The other thing is you must bring somebody with you. Again, that really goes back to accountability, making sure that there is some transparency. It could be easy for a manager to just show up and say, hey, everything's fabulous, right? If there's nobody else there. I'm not saying you would, I'm just saying it's possible, right? So the idea is that you must at least bring one other person with you. That can be your city manager. That can be your board chair. That, you know, can be if you have, let's say you report to the community development director, you report to Parks and Recs director, whoever you report to. So, somebody who, you know, is somebody else within your program needs to be there with you. If you have another staff member, they can come, but I also kind of like somebody else to come with you. Again, just for that accountability perspective, to make sure that what we're seeing, what we're hearing is a correct reflection. And also, you know, it's nice to hear from other folks too, you know, that there is that support system in place for you. Right now, I'm kind of keeping the limit to 3 people from your community because of COVID. If things change and get better, I might open up that number and say you can bring more. I would like to be able to do that, kind of maybe up it to 5, but I'm just going to tell you it's going to depend on the world and how, you know, when we get a little bit closer, I'm going to have to make that assessment. But as of right now, I'm going to say 3 people max. But if I can raise that limit, I will. Elizabeth?
And just one thing for that. So yeah, you must bring one person with you. So as Jessica said, she mentioned it could be your mayor, it could be elected officials, it could be a lot of different people. One thing is we've had some interesting conversations. I won't say hard, But it's one of those things that depending on the person that bring with you, you're a manager and you know your community. And I had this conversation with a particular manager the other day. This can be a strategic moment for you. If there's something that has been difficult for your program and your leadership just isn't getting the message, we might have that discussion depending on your presentation, or if you contact us beforehand and say, this is a real issue, I don't know how to get through to them. This is an opportunity for us to literally help you and be in the same room with somebody that might need to have a conversation with, to understand the role of Main Street, literally what the requirements are. If they're, you know, a board chair that is just harping on events, and it's like, this is we really need to focus on economic development, we can help have that facilitate sort of that small conversation within the framework of this annual assessment presentation. So be thinking about that for the people you bring with you. Also, I got the question, it's like, well, what if nobody wants to come? Well, that signals to us that there's a larger issue with the program, and you will probably be on probation for that. We know that accidents or extenuating circumstances happen. We had a tornado warning in one of our presentations 2 years ago. Things happen, but if nobody is willing to come to help represent the community for a national designation and a state designation, that signals to our office and just sort of the parameters of Main Street and downtown development in general that there's a larger picture. And so that's really not an option unless it's just sort of something happens and you can't help it. But so you need to bring at least one person with you, ideally somebody within leadership, because those are going to be the people that get the most out of the conversation, especially if there's a particular conversation that needs to be had. Mm-hmm. And I'll leave it at that.
And I will say, if you do it virtually, there is no limit. I'm not saying you should do it virtually for that element, but obviously the cap on extra people really only applies to us doing it in person. Again, that's to make sure that you're safe and we're safe. It's purely for that purpose. I will tell you, in the past, we've had as much as 10 people from other communities show up. And it's been great to have that strong presence and to have that kind of representation. So for us, we actually really like that. We like seeing your support system. We like being able to hear from different people and be able to ask broader questions of the group. But again, the limitation is purely just the COVID perspective. And again, if I can raise that, I will. But for right now, this is just what I'm going to set it at, and we'll play it by ear as we get closer. Yep.
And one more thing, or two more things, real quick, I promise. So Jessica mentioned pictures. Please, pictures, please. That's how we can literally see the community and what the great things you're doing, your smiling faces. We want to see your board. We want to see your volunteer. Please, pictures. We've had presentations that have just literally used the 14 slides. Honestly, if you do that, you're probably putting a lot of text on those slides. Space it out. It's okay. You can use more than one slide to cover one particular subject. We had one presentation that was 120 slides. That sounds like a lot, but it was rapid fire pictures. It was like picture, 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 pictures. They didn't hesitate for very long, and by no means do you need to do that, 120. But it just gives us a better idea for the community and what's actually going on physically, especially if only one of us has been there recently. It gives the team as a whole a greater perspective of everything that's going on, so that's wonderful. And a pet peeve of mine, there's one slide that says, use 3 words to describe your community. Please do not use the word historic. All historic downtowns, I want you to dig deeper. So historic is banned from here to after. Dig deeper. Think of what really is determining the personality of your downtown, your volunteers, your board, all of that. Jessica might not agree with me here, but this is...
No, I was just going to say, I think it's hysterical that you mentioned that, because I will tell you, like, I'll try really hard not to roll my eyes if I see you put historic up on the, as one of your 3 words. But when you're sitting there and you're thinking, I want to be a GEMS community, I will tell you, we've never had a community once come in and present to us that is later considered for GEMS that if they had to categorize themselves in 3 words or describe themselves in 3 words, that they say historic. There's always other things that they're digging deeper, to describe themselves, so think about it from that perspective, There's going to be people who just kind of like do the basic. There's going to be some people who take it up a notch. But remember, this is your opportunity to show us what's been going on. And I will also say that for those communities presenting, and I did not mention this earlier, and I'm sorry for that because I should have, you can present on anything that's happened over the past 3 years. And technically 4 years, because it's been 4 years since we met regions 3 and 4 because of COVID. So you can look at any project. When we talk about what's your major accomplishments, talk to us from the perspective of what's happened over the past 4 years since we last met with you in person. So you're not just looking at 1 year of stuff, you're looking at 4 years of stuff, which makes it honestly a little bit easier. And the reason we do that, especially with the presentations, is we know that like big projects and stuff like that, they take time, right? Like, I mean, most of our more senior managers will tell you, oh, this is like 10 years in the making. This was, 6 years in the making. This was 5 years in the making. This is not something that we just woke up and decided to do and like implemented the next day. Like good stuff takes time. And so please feel free, even though your actual assessment documents that you turn in will really just be looking at that 1 year. When you're doing your presentation, we're looking at 3 years. We're looking at, 4 years. We're looking at 4 years. We're looking at that broader perspective. So that might
And
make it a little bit easier as well.
and also for that, I know a lot of you are new managers, and this is going to be the first time you're presenting. Utilize the institutional knowledge of your board, your leadership, all of those to really try to get a picture of what's happened in those 4 years. If you've only been there for a year and you present only for the year that you've been there, that kind of, we want to know what's been happening in your community, even if it happened before you. You're not taking credit for something great that happened. It's just you telling the story of your community. So lean on your support to get that sort of background information of things that might be valuable to include in the presentation.
Mm-hmm. And I will say too, be honest. If you're having challenges in something, tell us, because we can't help you if we don't know there's a problem. And just because there's a problem doesn't mean you're going to go on probation, doesn't mean you're in trouble. I will say probation, and we're going to actually talk about this in a minute, but that's typically an organizational issue. That's not it's not typically, oh, we're having a challenge with this project or something like that in the community, or this is an issue we need to address. That's more like organizational stuff. So the thing is, if you have something you want to work on, you have something that you want to do, tell us about it. Because I remember literally 4 years ago sitting in a presentation with Courtney Harcourt about Noonan, and sitting there with Courtney and Hasco, and her telling us about this area that she wanted to revitalize, and it was this back alley area, and I just started spitballing and throwing some stuff out. Fast forward 3 or 4 years later, they have revamped this whole area. It's been a huge catalyst project for their downtown and has gained a lot of actual extra support and impact, and is just visually incredible. But that all came from us sitting there having that discussion during the annual assessment, and me saying, hey, have you thought about this, or what about this resource, and what about those kind of things, because this is just a great opportunity for you to pick our brains, right? For us to sit there together and go through this stuff and see what resources we can help you with, and what other opportunities there are for all of us. So again, utilize it. And if lastly, this is the last thing I'll say and I will move on. If you're really, really nervous about all this, let us know and we will connect you with a community that's presented before, a manager who has more experience and has been here a little bit and has gone through this presentation process, and you can ask them all the questions you want. You can ask them everything. We'll put you in touch with someone, and you can, just get all the nerves out, and you can ask them what to expect and that whole thing. Again, my hope is that you come into this and you feel calm, cool, collected, and prepared. I do not want you to come in and feel like a nervous wreck and that you have to pop a Xanax. My hope is that everybody just feels good going into it. So anything that I can do, anything that Elizabeth can do, anything that the team can do to help you feel more prepared for that, that is all I want. That is everything I'm looking for. So please, if you need that, just reach out to us. We can help. Okay, Dropbox. The best thing and the worst thing ever, right? So Dropbox. I like to show this because I like to show what a Dropbox in theory should look like, right? This is Statesboro. They're one of our GEMS communities. I actually, when I was looking for communities to show off, I usually, full disclosure, go to one of our GEMS because they're on the ball, right? And Statesboro is one of those communities. When I go into your Dropbox folder, when Elizabeth goes into your Dropbox folder, this is what we want to see. I want to see all your years organized like this. I want to see, you can have stuff like this, your accredited logos or Main Street America logos, some of that extra stuff, but this is what I'm looking for. Historical data that is organized by year. This is exactly what it's supposed to look like. When I go into the 2021 folder, that one right there, because this is where you're going to put all your stuff. Remember, we're not putting it in 2022. We're actually putting it in 2021 because it's for the year 2021. I know it can get confusing, folks. If you get confused, just ask us. We'll tell you what it should be called and what it should be labeled. But when you click on that and go into 2021, this is what the inside of their 2021 folder looks like. They've got their annual assessment folder, which is where you're going to put like your any kind of documents, checklist things that you have. They've got all of their folders here, standard 1, standard 2. Now they have them labeled so you can easily see what should go, like the title of each one, so you can get that like easy, quick and dirty, like, oh, that's what goes here. But again, when you look at that annual assessment checklist, we tell you what folder everything should go in. So if you have your stuff like this, it makes it really, really easy for you. And again, when we're going through it, it makes it a lot easier for us to find, because remember, we're looking at 100+ communities. And I'll turn over to Elizabeth in like 2 seconds. Or Elizabeth's looking at 100+ communities. But the other thing I will say is that the reason we like having it makes it easier for everything to find. B, this is succession planning. This is for succession planning, right? If you leave and everything is the way it should be, that means the new manager can come in and find those historical documents in the same place, in the same way that they would find everything else. And 2 or 3, I don't even remember how many points I'm on now, but the reason we like to do this the same every year is because when you have changes or updates, you put it in that new year. So we can see any changes in the evolution of the program as things have evolved. And so that way too, if I'm working with you and I'm working with Elena and Alan in Statesboro and they want me to look at something, I know that I go to the 2021 folder and I'm going to find the most up-to-date information, right? I don't have to dig for it. I know where it is. And I can see everything, in real time as it's happening. Put stuff in there now. Don't wait to the end. Elizabeth.
For the model Dropbox folder, each folder is labeled. So if that's something that sounds too labor intensive for you to do yourself, again, just let me know. I can drag and drop. Sorry, Jessica. I'm happy to do so. And that way, at very least, you can have the labels already put down there. So it's not just standard 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Because I feel like I'm the only one person in the universe that knows those by heart because I go through 100+ each year. So.
But again, the idea is that this makes it easier for you. It makes it easier for us. It makes it easier. This is your hit by a bus. If you got hit by a bus tomorrow crossing the street and a board member had to come in and find stuff, this is how they would find it. This is going to be the first thing I'm going to say. Let me get you access to Dropbox. Let me get you access to their historical information. Use this, guys. Like, put your stuff in it regularly. Put your minutes in it. Put your agenda stuff in it regularly. Don't wait till the end of the year. That way your computer breaks, it dies, you lose all it. We've had programs who've said, our system was hacked, but we had it all in Dropbox, so we didn't lose anything. Or, my computer crashed, but I had it in Dropbox, so I didn't lose anything. I mean, this is also for you too. I mean, it's one of those resources that you get out of it what you put into it, right? And it can be such an asset for you and your community and your program if you use it the way it's designed to be used. Again, don't wait. Do it now. Make it easier on yourself. So again, you are required to keep everything up to date at all times, which means in theory, you should be meeting monthly and then putting your agenda and your minutes and your financial report and all that into Dropbox every single month. I know there's plenty of you who are thinking, Jessica, are you kidding me? I don't do that. It's not that hard, guys. You know this. You can save it, the Dropbox stuff on your desktop, and you can drag and drop. It does not have to be hard. You are required to keep that historical information. So if you've got old stuff, do not get rid of it. Do not delete it. Also, if you start deleting stuff, we will see it and we're going to like undelete it and then freeze your account so that you can't edit the folder, because Elizabeth and I are going to be like, what are you doing? Stop getting rid of stuff. So yeah, we want to see all that historical information. If you inherit a mess and you get in there and your Dropbox is not organized the way it needs to be, and you don't know what to do or where to start, call Elizabeth or myself and we will make some suggestions. We can even go in there and help you with this. But the ultimate thing is that we don't want any of that information to go away. It's just making it more manageable for you as a program manager. Again, this will impact your accreditation eligibility. We've been doing Dropbox for years. This is not a new thing anymore, guys. This is old hat at this point. So if something is not right, if you're not doing what you need to, we're not playing anymore. Nobody's got time for that. This is the basics. If we can't handle the basics, then I worry about your ability to handle anything above and beyond that. So again, monthly reporting, Dropbox organization, basics. We're not going to be as forgiving anymore. I've never been forgiving. We're not going to be as lenient. So it used to be more like if you showed up and your stuff wasn't in order, I gave you a deadline and you had to meet it, right? And I put you on probation until you met it. I don't want to do that. Like, just get it done. Get it done right. There's no reason. You got 6 months to do it. Make it happen. And if you need help, ask. Yes. Oh, resources.
And I was about to say, yeah, please ask. Just ask. It's not a hard thing to go through. I'm here for you. Our team's here for you. So if you need help, reach out. Do not be afraid that you're going to have a finger wagged at you. We want you to succeed. We don't want any of this to be overly burdensome for you. So this, like, getting it reorganized could be the hardest part. And then once it's organized, it makes your life a lot easier. So please ask. Please.
It's literally our job to help you. Use us. Let us help you. But again, I'm not going to go into every single community's folder prior to January 15th and be like, you're not on track. Ain't nobody got time for that. Plus, you're all adults. I want to treat you like adults. But if you need help, we are more than happy to help you.
And if you want to know some of the common pain points for your past couple years, the write-ups after the assessment, they should all be in your folders. If it's missing for some reason, let me know. I'll get it to you. But when I go through, if I'm noticing kind of common things, whether the incorrect financial information or not a fully filled out board roster, stuff like that, I make note of it. And last year, 2020, we'll get into it, we were a little bit more like lenient on some stuff, as Jessica was saying, because we know everybody had a hard year. But if you kind of want to know your pain points, or if you want me to pre-review your Dropbox, if there's anything that I'm noticing prior to submitting, even if it's now some of your foundational documents, let me know. Again, just reach out, ask for help.
I'm going to briefly talk about resources. Again, I wanted to just show you, where you can find this. If you were kind of tuned out earlier and now you're freaking out and you want to know where to find it, website, you're going to go up to the resource library. You're going to go to, on this page, there's a little drop down box over here. You click on it, you filter by category, you find annual assessment. You come in there and literally everything you need is in there. This is a big helpful tool right here, a visual guide to Dropbox management. Elizabeth, a couple years ago, took the time to do a complete document that literally shows what should be in every folder, what the expectation is, tips and tricks. I mean, like, these resources are here. Again, the only reason if you're not doing this or meeting this is because you're not trying. And that sounds mean, but it's true. It's because we have tried to take the guesswork out of all of it. We've got our templates in here. We've got, different pages depending on whether you're presenting or non-presenting. These resources are here for you. So, question, is your program ready? If I log into your Dropbox today and this is what it looks like, I will tell you you're not ready. Remember, I want to see it organized by years, right? That's the first thing I should see when I go in. If it looks like this, I'm like, dude, you have not listened to me. You are not ready. If I go into standard 5 board minutes for this year and there's nothing in there, I'll tell you right now, you're not ready, because there should be stuff in there. We're halfway through the year. I hope you've had board meetings between January and now. And so this brings us to the idea of probation. This is not something we've really talked about before in annual assessment, like this whole annual assessment webinar and process, but Elizabeth and I felt like it would probably be a good thing to just touch on briefly. Again, this is not to scare you, and what I mean, I'll show you why I mean this is not supposed to be scary. So what does probation mean? If you are put on probation, it's a temporary designation that is assigned to your program, typically for a year. It may be less. It depends on the circumstances. This identifies that something is not operationally correct with your program, but that we believe there's a pathway to you regaining your footing. And that is very important, because if we feel like you're just absolutely not doing what you need to, something is really, really wrong, we're not going to put you on probation. We're either just going to move you down a designation, or we might not give you a designation at all. And again, so probation means something's amiss, but we believe it can be fixed. And there is always a time limit attached to that. Like I said, typically it's a year, but we have done less before. And the other thing is, it's a tool to help identify who needs more attention and assistance from our office. And you will never be put on probation without very specific steps being identified for you. So we would never say, oh, you're on probation, good luck with that. We would say you're on probation because of this. This is what needs to happen. This is the time frame it needs to happen in. These are the expectations. It would be in your annual assessment document. And the thing is, nobody knows about probation status other than you and your city. I will say that we will tell your supervisor, we will tell your board, because it does no good to have the manager know they're on probation and nobody else. That's not how this works. Sorry. If you're on probation, that means everybody in your city may know. Not maybe necessarily like the media external stuff, that is not necessary, but your support team, they do need to know. And you will still get your designation, as far as like you would still be a Main Street accredited community or a Main Street affiliate community or a GEMS community. You would still get your designation. But this is something that our office would know, we would work with you on. And if it doesn't get resolved, then there's other steps taken. So what can trigger probation? That's probably the thing that y'all are wondering, right? So first and foremost, a program who's not able to meet assessment standards. You don't have a work plan document. You don't have a mission and vision statement. Things that you need to do that are the basics that are not there, that can trigger probation. And again, we would say, this is what needs to happen. This is when it needs to happen. Full disclosure, we've had people come to us and do presentations and everything looks great, except they're missing a couple documents, right? We will tell them, you will be on probation. You have 1 month, put this in there. Once you remove it, probation will be removed. But again, you know, it's not fair to everybody else who is doing what they should be, right? The other thing is, you could be put on probation for not completing all your monthly reports, not submitting them on time. Again, everybody gets a give me, right? If you're on vacation, you're sick, you know, something happens, you need a little extra time, you know, 1 month or whatever, that's fine. Habitual, you know, violators, I'm talking to you right now. If you have a surprise change to the program, staff, or board, this is probably something we haven't talked about as often, but it is in your MOU. And you sign it every single year. And it says, if there is a change, you are supposed to notify us that a change is coming. And that is because if there's a change coming, there's probably something that's wrong, right? And you're trying to address it. We need to know that. We need to help you through that process. So if for some reason I woke up tomorrow morning and, you know, Reynoldsville has, you know, done away with the entire board of directors, that's a problem, right? Like, we need to know about that. If you have manager turnover, and not just like a little manager turnover, but like a lot of manager turnover. If this is like a regular thing for you, that could kick you into probation. And we've done that. We've done that with both of these things. Like, I mean, both those things have happened, and those things have caused people to go on probation or lose their designation, depending on the situation. And I will say each situation is, their own specific case. There is not necessarily 100% right answer for each one. It's like that attorney thing. It all depends. But I'm just telling you that these are some things that could trigger it. And I will say last but not least, any action that is not representative of a Main Street community. I know that's really broad, but I always think of it as if you were doing something that I would never recommend to somebody else to do, or I would never say that this is what a good, functioning Main Street program should be doing, that could put you on probation. And that may mean, we've had an example of this. The Main Street program was housed somewhere. Somebody decided they didn't want that anymore. They didn't discuss it with anybody. They changed it. They moved it. Got rid of the manager. Let them know that they were done, and just like literally just arbitrarily decided to restart everything. That is never something that I would ever say another program should do. So if these are actions that you're like, gosh, these are just not good practices, right? These are not good operational decisions. That is something that could trigger probation. Again, hopefully probation, you go on it because we're helping you to get back on track. If we don't feel like you can get back on track, again, that's a whole separate conversation. So probation doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. And if you are a new manager and you come in and your program's on probation, that's not about you. We know that. It may be just because you've had a lot of manager turnover. We know that too. We know why you're on probation, right? So, don't freak out about that. But if you are on probation, it's one of those good things to figure out why. So that way, if you're new, you can come in, you can help get things sorted, straightened out, and move forward. It's just not something we've talked about before, but it is something that happens pretty regularly. Every year somebody goes on probation, and it's usually a couple people. And it's never, most time, it's not the same people, because again, if it was the same people, we wouldn't put you on probation, right? We would move you down or we'd move you out, because it's not going to be a good fit for you. So I just don't want you to feel like you're an odd duck if this has happened to you, but I need you to be aware of some of the things that could trigger it. Elizabeth, anything that I missed that you wanted me to hit on?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay.
And again, so 2020, and I think Jessica's going to mention this a little bit, but 2020 was a unique year. We put a few communities on probation, but it was just sort of like a lot of the manager stuff, the manager turnover, or a large gap without a manager, and then they hired somebody new, and you just wanted to make sure that that person was supported, and they knew that we were keeping an eye on them, to make sure. There's a couple different situations. There were probably some communities in 2020 for 2021 or for 2020 that in 2021 should, according to our normal standards, been on probation. But we did not want to kind of kick anybody while they were down, because 2020, a lot of us couldn't control what was going on. And so we wanted to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. So that's one reason we felt that it was good for us to kind of communicate this right now, is just because you did some stuff in 2020 that like got a pass doesn't mean that this year necessarily the same pass will happen. So do your due diligence. If there's anything you're worried about, or if there's a note in your Dropbox that you don't quite understand from me, because again, all the Dropbox note stuff in that write-up is my notes, and Jessica reviews them. So if there's anything that you're not 100% sure of, want some clarity, something that I might have mentioned that like, hey, this needs a little bit of work, please reach out. I'd love to help you with this. Reach out, please. That's why I put that note in there. We want to help you. We want to succeed. And honestly, everything in your Dropbox, those foundational documents, the reason they're foundational is they're going to help your program in the long run. So we want to make sure they're nice and strong, and anything that might be a little bit iffy, like we want to help you get it to the point that it's going to be an aid versus a hindrance.
One of the things I want to show y'all real quick, for some reason it's taken forever to load. Okay, this is the document this is in the handouts. This is the document for the non-presenting communities. So annual assessment standards and accreditation for non-presenting, the checklist. This is what it looks like. We've got a little introduction here, talking to you about the assessment process. Again, talking about the deadline. If you got questions, there's Elizabeth's contact information. These are the different criterias. This has been added. If you want to talk to us a little bit, any successes or challenges or anything that you feel like is important for us to know and just take into consideration, please feel free to do that. Again, this is for the people who aren't meeting with us. And then this is your checklist. So you'll see you've got map of the program district boundaries. This is where it needs to go. Your org chart. This is where it needs to go. Your mission and vision statement. This is where it needs to go. I want to see that you've done all these and that all of them are in this spot. Don't check it if it's not in there, because obviously we're going to find out, because we literally go through and look for every single item. This is not something that we just like rubber stamp. Every single assessment, we go and look at every single document. This is why it takes us so long to do it. The manager must sign it, the board chair must sign it, and your supervisor must sign it. Again, that's so everybody's on the same page. You must date it, and then down here is just an overview of some of the state requirements that we have, just to remind you. Elizabeth, any thoughts about this before I switch documents?
For the tell us about your year, that's sort of a selfish thing that I put in there, because as much as looking at board minutes and budgets and stuff like that, I always feel like I want to, and work plans and all that stuff, I always want a little bit more insight, because a lot of times those documents don't tell the whole story. And I felt like that when I was a manager too, that when I was submitting things, that the office wasn't necessarily hearing about the whole story. So this is your opportunity, that if something's not reflected in those documents, or it's something you want to brag on, or if it's something that you really need help on and maybe the documents aren't reflecting that, this is your opportunity. This does not have to be a dissertation. Just like, give me a little bit of insight for your community. Also, it'll make going through Dropbox a little bit more dynamic, because I'll, again, get to kind of hear about what's going on and be able to share it with the team. Like, hey, they're doing these great things. And instead of having to wait for every 3 years for a presentation, and then we talk to y'all throughout the year, but it's just sort of that opportunity of like, what you choose to share tells us a lot about what you're excited about and going on, and what's going on in your community. So this is really, don't see this as a burden, see this as an opportunity. It's just our ability to kind of get a little bit of insight year to year, instead of kind of waiting for that presentation every 3 years, that if there's something you want to brag on, let us know. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and in the same vein, if there was something that was a challenge that impacted your program and you feel like you might look through my stuff and feel like something's off, mention that as well. If something like dramatically impacted you, or something is like, again, gonna change how we need to, kind of look at certain things, let us know. Just be upfront with us, be honest with us, let us see that.
And it can be even special assistance you might need in the coming year too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to pull up the presentation template, because it's a template, it's intuitive, you fill it out, you address the questions. But I will pull up, for everybody who is presenting, you must do this long form. This is the 2021 through 2023 annual standards for accreditation. This is the document that every community will use to present with us for the next 3 years. So this document will not change. If you've never seen this document before, this is the deep dive that I keep talking about. This document must be turned into us, must be completed and turned into us by January 15th. Sorry, I'm trying to scroll and it's taking its time. Again, kind of starts out the same, anything you would like to discuss, but again, you're going to be with us in person. So the way that this works is that each of the standards are broken down into their own individual pages, and each thing is points based. So you're going to go through here, and this is where I always say, take your temperature earlier, see where you're at, go through and say, yes, I'm doing this, yes, I'm doing this, yes, I'm doing this, and then go down and see what your score is. Out of, I think it's 9 out of 10, you have to meet at least a 7 in order to be considered passing. The only exception is standard 4, that's for preservation. I'm going to scroll ahead to that. And we have more points available here. So you can, I think it's, oh, it should say somewhere on here. Let me look, it might be down at the very bottom. Yeah, for this standard, you must achieve a total of 10 out of a possible 32 points. For people who say the standard is too hard to meet, I will say a couple things. One is we are Main Street. We are preservation, like economic development that's based in preservation. If you have trouble meeting the standard, there's not much I can do to help you as far as like waiving it and saying you don't have to do it. This is at the core of what we do. Preservation is important. Preservation matters. If it's something that you feel like that you will continue to not be able to meet or fail, that is where that affiliate designation comes into play, because I can give you more flexibility there, but I can't give you flexibility here. Preservation is extremely, extremely important, and it matters. But we have tried to add more areas for points, right? So that you can have more opportunities to be successful in this standard, in standard 4. So again, we have tried to be as flexible as we possibly can. The other thing I will say is that this document does differ a little bit, guys, than the one that was of the previous 3 years. And what I mean by that is we've tried to go in, remove some redundancies, put in place things that are, maybe more applicable to where our programs are at now. The other thing you will see in here is that please note that something in bold indicates it's a requirement, meaning you must have this. You get your points for it, you get to check it, but it's something you're required to have. And I will go kind of back up here to like standard 3. So, you are required to have a work plan. It is required to be in that ODD work plan template or in an approved format by us. If you don't know if you're in that approved format, then you should reach out. But again, you are required to do these. But the nice thing is then you only have to do, another 2 points to meet this standard. I will tell you though, obviously GEMS communities excel in these areas. They're not usually just meeting the basics, they're meeting above and beyond. Also, for GEMS communities, if you're interested in becoming one, we tend to see that GEMS communities are at that, 17 mark in standard 4, Elizabeth? 17 points, is that right?
At very least, a lot of ours are up into the 20. I would say majority is up into the 20s.
Yeah, I was gonna say the base usually for them is 17, but they are up in the 20s in the standard 4 for preservation. So again, I'm showing you that document because what I'm going to talk about for next steps is, do an assessment of your Dropbox's organization, make updates, make sure you're archiving information, take that checklist, whether it's the deep dive or if you're not presenting the shorter version, go through it, see what you have, see what you're missing. Other things, if you've had organizational changes, we want to see a new org chart. Right? I want to see what up with updated names and people. I want to see with whoever's current. Yes.
So I always tell people for org charts not to put names, just to put the
Sorry.
Just because so it can become a static document. Because a lot of people, that's one thing that they don't think about updating, and especially with board changes, it just kind of becomes a hassle. And that's what the board roster's for. So for org chart, that's what I typically state.
That's fine with me. That's fine.
But if there's any shift in structure, so let's say you used to be under community development and you're being moved under economic development, we want to know that. We want to know who that is and then who they report to. We want to see the chain of command, essentially. We want to understand who you're tucked under, whether that's the city, whether you're a chamber organization, whether you're tourism, whether you're independent nonprofit. We want to understand the chain of command, who you're reporting to, so that way when we're talking to you, and I've done this with a lot of you on the phone, it's like, well, tell me a little bit about your program. I'll literally go into Dropbox, pull up your org chart, pull up your boundaries, pull up your latest budget, just so I can kind of and then if I'm seeing anything that's confusing there, then ask you additional questions. But it not only helps with succession planning for y'all, it helps us when we're calling you or talking to you, helping you work throughout a program, through a problem, not program. It gives us something that we can look at immediately and understand to a level and then ask additional questions, and we don't have to do kind of that initial sort of, maybe 20-minute conversation of understanding X, Y, and Z, because we can see it. So that's a valuable portion of Dropbox as well.
Yep. And I will say too that I would say the org chart is probably one of the things people put the least amount of time in, and one of the things we look at the most, which is sad. But it's because when we really want to understand how your community is working, that's the first thing that we go to is, okay, let's see how they're set up. How are things interacting? Who do they report to? Who gets to make decisions? How are these decisions made? And that org chart should be able to give us that feel for it. So like Elizabeth said, even if, your city manager changes, or, somebody else, who's above you changes or whatever, like at least we understand the hierarchy of things and who is ultimately you're accountable to and responsible for. So again, my recommendation is, download these documents today, give yourself a temperature check, share them with the board, let the board know and understand what this process is. They need to be involved in it. They're going to have to sign off on it. So it's important for them to be, your accountability partners. And if you're doing the deep dive one for the presentation, they need to be a part of that process too. And, we're 6 months out. Nothing is like too far gone that you can't do something to get where you need to be. But if you also feel like you're struggling in an area, please reach out to us. We can go through it with you. We can make suggestions, recommendations. We'll work with you. That's again what we're here for. Make sure your supporting documentation's uploaded. Double check your monthly reports are on time, been submitted. You're going to have your supervisor and your board chair sign off it. Make sure that there's enough time to do that. Again, make sure you've discussed this with them, so when they go to sign it, they're just, putting the name on it and moving on. You're not having to, hey, this is what Jessica and Elizabeth are making me do, and let me explain this whole process to you right now. Like, have those conversations ahead of time. Again, the whole idea is that instead of acting like this, you're going to be feeling like this. Nice and relaxed and calm. And I don't know where she is, but that's where I want to be right now, drinking a cup of coffee outside, enjoying myself. So thank you guys. We're going to dive into questions. If you feel good about it, you can hop off. Again, classic communities presenting. For anybody who's a GEMS community on the line right now, we always talk to you and reach out to you about everything independently. But if you are a GEMS community that isn't in region 3 or 4, you're doing the short list, the short checklist. Noonan, we already met with you this year. Abby, if you're on, Abigail, if you're on, you're doing the checklist this year too. And Jeff from Ackworth, if you're on, I will reach out to you. That's a whole separate conversation. Affiliates, you're doing the checklist just to go over it. But again, we expect some kind of documentation from everybody. So there's nobody who gets off without, turning in something. Nobody gets off the hook. Everybody's got to be accountable on some level. So, but thank you guys. We appreciate y'all. Sorry, we know it was long, but it's a lot to cover. We want to make sure you're as informed as possible.